Here we go. Okay, I'm here today with Alice Ray. Alice and I met, I guess it was about, it'll be 6 years in February, I think, when I gave that course,
Right.
the body electronics course on Salt Spring, and you came up from Utah. So Alice is, and I believe, the youngest daughter of the late John Whitman Ray. Is that correct? Are you?
You, you I'm actually, we found another sister that's younger than me that lives in Colorado, and her name is Suzanne.
Okay.
But I'm not sure her age. She might be like, who knows how many years younger than me, but
Okay.
of his immediate family, yes. And then there's that one. But we met her at, I think 3 years ago, or maybe 4 now, this past summer. We met, we had a Ray family reunion, and I got to meet many family members I've never known before. And it was really, really amazing.
Wow.
And it's so amazing to see some of the genetic quirkinesses or awkwardnesses of the genetic line, like that you never met this person, but and I never met my dad, but the apple doesn't fall from the tree very far at all. If you know, you didn't know your dad, but all these people have these certain traits. It's so awesome to see the mechanistic behavior that's been passed down generation to generation to generation.
Yes, that's an interesting opportunity to see that in so many others.
It was fascinating, and those that don't even understand it were probably even more fascinating, like looking at yourself in a mirror, kind of.
Right. Wow. Yeah. So I kind of remember one of our conversations about, so you were with your dad when you were a baby, though. Is that correct?
I did have someone channel that he had been there when I was a baby to maybe be there for a bath or two. Just,
oh, I see. Okay.
Probably as tiny as this baby is now.
Okay.
I'm just maybe 5 or 6 weeks. I actually don't have any recollection. I thought he'd gone before I was born, but he did sign the birth certificate.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, bless him wherever he is, huh?
Yes, bless him.
Brought this beauty onto the planet, and then you've just recently had a child. So yeah.
Yes, I named her Trinity, which was so fitting. It came to me up in the mountains in this beautiful there's an American up Timpanogos, on Timpanogos, and her name just came into my head, and I was like, what? That's the girl off of the Matrix movie. And then they're like, yeah, and I was like, okay, what else? And then I look across, and there was these 3 rivers merging into one. And then if you think about the father, the mother, and the father, mother, and son, that's the Trinity. And so it was like all these, it was just really fitting for that to be called her name. And then a moose was right there at the beginning of that space a couple weeks later, just kind of maybe holding the space as her spirit guide animal, something totem. It was really beautiful. Wow. But yeah, I had a plan to have a home water birth, and was in the water, and she had meconium in her amniotic fluid, so she was stressed out. And so every time I'd have a contraction, the fetal heart rate would go too low, and my midwife was like, you're going straight to the hospital, go now. And then within an hour I had her through cesarean. So that was pretty interesting to be wanting to have it as a water birth at home, all peaceful, and maybe having a little resistance to the medical field,
right?
Especially during COVID-19, everybody's all freaked out, and but it actually worked out really beautiful. I was very grateful for the experience. Being in a place with no sunshine, you're almost like in quarantine in a little teeny room with electromagnetic frequencies everywhere. Yeah. And LED lighting. So like everything's all ski-wampus, your circadian rhythms are all way off. And then you have to have a COVID-19 test to even be able to see your baby and have it be negative. So
Wow.
that was really strange. Like I saw my baby come out of me, or, get shown to me after the C-section,
Yes.
and then couldn't see her till like the next night. It was so strange.
Uh-huh.
But I was so grateful she's alive, thank
Yes.
thank goodness for modern medicine.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I felt that way too when my children, I had similar experiences. So, I wanted the peaceful, I had a midwife and, that those ideas around that, but ended up in, emergency sections too. So, and I came to that exact conclusion, just that gratitude for basically just the experience. So, I still, not that I didn't have to do a lot of work on the table and inner work in regards to letting go, of certain aspects of it, or things that I had felt that I wanted, or that, in the birth process. But eventually it just all came down to gratitude.
Absolutely. Yep. Grateful that whatever way these little angels come through there, excuse me, that it's blessed.
Yeah.
My goodness. Could you imagine if you couldn't get the baby out of there, if they didn't know how to do that?
Right.
Be like,
Yeah. And that's how it's, so yeah, there's so many things to be grateful for in modern medicine. I completely agree. Yeah.
yeah. And thankfully we're put out. I mean, like, I remember, maybe you're the one who told me, or somebody told me that John, or maybe it was actually in a video that I would watch, that John Hutchinson sent me from Australia or New Zealand or wherever he lives. He sent me like 100 videos of the trainings that my dad would put on.
Yeah.
And so I was watching some of those, and one time he said he went without anesthesia for his teeth, and he would have rather had his anesthesia for the teeth and then do point holding and re-experience it later.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think that's, obviously we're grateful for cesareans to have the nerve block or the anesthesia so that we don't feel it right in the moment.
Yes.
But as the 6 weeks since I've had her, just re-experiencing those really, unraveling the trauma that was created, and then get to unravel it as you just give your body time to heal.
Mm-hmm. So you got right into it after you came home? You got right into or maybe even in the hospital?
I think definitely just to lovingly and willingly experience everything, whatever it was, not seeing your baby. I never wanted to get a COVID-19 test, and I had to have one, and,
Yeah.
not having, maybe not, just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Because resistance, right, is futile. So it's like, okay, it was just very interesting. And be that light without, you can see it almost reverberate out while you're even going into the nursery in the NICU, because everything is perfect divine order. So there's not really the fear or the mind chatter to create stories of what's going to happen with my baby, or is she going to live. It's like everything, this is perfect, everything's happening perfectly, trusting.
Mm-hmm.
Just trusting the process was really the key experience.
Yes. Uh-huh. And bringing that trust for myself personally, I didn't tell you this before, but I've experienced COVID. I had COVID in February, March, and I spent,
Wow.
and I haven't actually come out to the world until this moment.
Wow,
So,
telling people that. You never want it. You were actually tested positive for it.
No, where I was living on the island, we had no testing. So there were many of us on the island that had COVID, and but it was never proven with test. There's literally no testing, and at the hospitals they weren't allowing anybody who was sick into the hospital. So I didn't go to the hospital, but some people that I know did, and they were just turned away at the door and told to go home and recover. And that's what we did. There were many of us on the island that did just that. So
wow.
I spent 9 weeks alone. Really, literally, like when of course I was far too ill to even look. And one of my sons on on a video said, "Oh, I think you have COVID," and I said, "Well, we'll figure that out later." And so basically, I just went through like from one extreme symptom to the next, and it just morphed
Wow.
and morphed and morphed and morphed. And even now, I mean, we're late September, and even now, I'm still, going back to what you said about the trusting. I'm still trusting in that process for my body to regenerate what it needs to regenerate, because I'm still having issues and symptoms and different things coming up. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's interesting. And I was actually 1000% surprised that I was tested negative for the antibodies or whatever they do to test for this COVID. Because my daughter, Spain was a big hotspot of this COVID outbreak.
Yes.
So they said, well, my daughter went to Spain last October to November and France. And then she came back and she was severely sick for 2 to 3 weeks. And then even then, the doctor, she does the medical route. So even the antibiotics didn't work. It just was. And then she finally broke down and took some of my sister who does herbal medicine tinctures and stuff, took some like Mormon whiskey is what they call it, and antiseptic and stuff with like wormwood and garlic and cayenne and all the good stuff, and she got better. And then a month later I got the same thing. And so when January came and they said, oh, this COVID outbreak is all over, I thought for sure I'd already had it. Yeah. And I thought for sure my daughter had it. And I was like, but they say that the testing is actually not even accurate because you can't, it's antibodies that maybe even your ancestors had, is what the doctor who created the test said. This shouldn't be used as a diagnostic tool.
Exactly.
Because so when I got tested in the hospital, when I gave birth to this little one, I thought for sure it was going to come back. And then I was like, then what? Am I not going to be able to see my baby?
So did they do a COVID test and an antibody test?
Well, the nurse that said what they're doing for the testing is the antibodies for it. So they just did that. And, they stick the little thing clear down your sinus cavity, and they did it to the little baby as well. But we both tested negative. So strange, because I thought for sure the symptoms of the COVID, I literally last December was off work for like 2 weeks. And I was very impressed of the symptoms of feeling like you're suffocating in your lungs. Like literally, like I can't breathe.
Crackling. I remember this crackling, and I could feel the liquid in there.
Yeah, I literally was like, do I have pneumonia or something? It was so weird, but got through it finally.
Well, to me, it sounds like they gave you like a classic COVID test, which you have to be actively, even if it's a good test, that it's not going to, have a false negative or false positive. My understanding is that you have to be active with symptoms at that time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or it has to be active in your system. You may not be producing symptoms, but you have to have it active in your system. And for an antibody test, it's actually a blood test.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I just had the stick they stuck up there.
Right.
So I guess it just wasn't active. But yeah. My goodness.
I feel completely that I have enough antibodies. Because I went through so many symptoms. I think I covered all, everything that virus had to offer. I think I
you got to experience all of that.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Man, that's and being alone for 9 weeks during it,
Right.
You were gonna say that your son who would text you, were you gonna say like that you couldn't even respond to his texts or whatever because you were so ill?
Yeah, for about a week there was a time when I actually didn't even know I would be mainly unconscious. So I didn't even call it sleeping, because when I was processing it later, it was more like I would just dip into this unconscious state, because I had an extremely high fever. I didn't have
Whoa.
anything to test my fever, but I was, having light hallucinations, and I was just dipping
Whoa.
into unconsciousness. And when I would come back, it would take me like a little period of time when I would be like, who am I? What's my name? I would have to remind myself what is my name?
Where
And
am I? Who am I? What is my
everything.
name?
Yeah, all of that. And
Wow.
I had everything right next to me on the bed. All of the things that my go-tos, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of white flower oil. It's a Chinese
Yeah,
oil.
yeah, we use it in cupping and scraping and
Well,
exiting sometimes.
yeah, exactly. And I had like a lot. I always keep a lot on hand. So when I was going through the pneumonia part, which I think lasted about a week,
Wow.
and so it was like a really high scorching fever for a couple of weeks, pneumonia for about a week. I mean, it just went through all these, and then the pain went down my right side into the organs, across and up my left, and did this big
Wow.
circle. So, felt it in my liver. I felt it in my kidney, and with a lot of pain, like about 2 days, 3 days for each. It was really interesting. And so I
Wow.
would pour the white flower oil on, like wherever it was going.
Yeah.
I would pour the white flower oil on, and later I would just peel the skin off. I mean, it was just, but
Whoa.
I knew that the one thing that it did not like was heat. It really
Oh.
didn't like heat. So whenever I would apply heat, I would start to feel it release. So
Wow.
everything that I had internally, I was taking a lot of things that were, really, really heating. And eventually, when I could get out of bed, I was doing hot baths, and like really, really hot baths. And then I would go and lay in the sun. Luckily, by the
Wow.
time I started to feel a little bit better, we had a lot of sun. So I would just go out and lay completely naked, on one side, and then turn over and just, be in the sun as much as possible. And eventually I got through it.
Wow. That's interesting that it went down your right side and then up the left. And more interesting is the amount of the fever that you had. And energetically and healing wise, if it is like I mean, like sometimes they say viruses are like a cleansing process or
Yeah.
something like that. So like your endothermic reaction of you giving off heat
Mm-hmm.
was like a super powerful healing process
Yes.
of some kind.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, my
Wow.
body was just burning. And I was holding points on myself the whole time too. Like
Nice.
as it was moving, I would, and I had, even if my thumb got sore, I had a little, it's like a stone actually with a rounded end that I use sometimes for, just for on myself. And so I
Yeah.
would just hold, it's made of jade. So I would just hold it and just really feel that pain and really, really go through it at the time. But even so, like I said, I still have lingering effects. We're looking at what, 8 months later almost. So,
Wow.
yeah, very, just really intense. And
And wow.
I was perfectly healthy, by the way. I was really in good shape. I'm always, I've always taken my supplements, and I drink lemon water every day. And it was just really, and when I look at, like, I've looked at a couple of groups who have joined together to share sort of experiences of like the post, um, whatever you want to call it. I don't like to use its name because I know that's just a, made up name, but
Right.
whatever this virus is, um, people are sharing their experiences, their long-term experiences. And one of the things that I found very interesting about that is that a lot of those people were extremely healthy.
Absolutely.
Isn't that interesting? That,
Yeah.
they weren't the aged, they weren't the immunocompromised. They were extremely healthy, athletic beings, and they're still, like me, experiencing, pretty significant symptoms. So
Wow.
anyway, so back to the trust. I really, and I have to, when I have like sort of these sort of onset of symptoms that just sort of, they'll just come, just fly in out of nowhere. And then they'll, I'll just kind of work through them, lovingly and willingly as I can, and experiencing the emotions, because I've had a lot of emotions,
Oh yeah.
and, just going through it the best I can. And and then it'll leave as quickly as it came. So
Wow.
it's really interesting. And that's something that other people are saying too. But when I'm having the experience, I'm really having to um, hone my trust, the
Absolutely.
trust in the human biome, the
Yes.
trust that this, I know that we're 99.99% unconscious of what is actually going on. And so, I trust that I'm doing my part, is what I offer to my body, this
Yeah. You're
this
staying in as
vessel.
much peace, gratitude, like not getting overwhelmed with suffocation. Like
Yes.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
someone who has an
Or if I do
anxiety
feel
attack.
overwhelmed, I'm feeling it, and I'm feeling it as much as possible with loving enthusiasm.
Yeah. You're like, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. Like being authentic, being real with whatever I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And but just allowing whatever, whatever the body, I know that it's a regeneration process. I guess that's really the the point. It's, it entered me somehow, and I'm getting to experience this. So
You're
yeah.
getting to.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm doing the best I can. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
doing my part. Even physically, like, I'm doing, of course, the emotional mental work, but physically, I'll share one thing that I also haven't shared before
Okay.
online. I just share it with my family, my children. But when I came through this, and I started to feel better in April, really, I started to, again, I was just laying in the sun every day, and we actually had we had like an entire month of nothing but sun. And
Wow.
I was working at the middle school, and so my job was put on hold. We were all in lockdown, so basically, my job was to lay in the sun.
I
So,
love that.
and really treat my body, with everything. I had everything I needed in my home. Like, I remember asking internally, okay, what do I do? What am I to do? And I heard, you have everything here that you need. You have everything you need. Okay. So, and I took that on many levels. I had everything I needed physically, and I had, I have everything I need, right?
Absolutely.
For the grand healing. So, but one of the things that I recognized very, very early on in this process was that I had some addictions that I was still hanging on to. So one of them being a morning coffee. I mean, it was literally one of the first things I would think about in the morning. And
I
had,
still have that addiction.
do you? Well, I
I
really,
do.
I would wake up, and I would be, like, be this part of my enthusiasm. And later I found that that was part of the justification about continuing it, because I was like, oh, I feel so good in the morning. I get up, and it was like a ritual, and another justification. And so it was
Yeah. And it
just,
tastes amazing and you
yeah,
feel great. It just is this yummy.
yeah, sit outside, quite lovely. Anyway, I realized that I had to let it go, and I had to
Yeah.
let it go completely. So, and there were other things I had to let go of too. There was, I would like to come home from work and enjoy a nice glass of wine in the afternoon, sitting outside in the sunshine. And that was another thing I, you know, uh, sort of attached some pleasure to it. And it was just a lovely late afternoon thing. Not every day, but I just really enjoyed that time.
Yeah.
And I also realized, okay, that's got to go. I had gotten back into wheat, which
Gluten.
wheat is, you know, so I realized I
Yeah.
can't let go of wheat. There was a list. of things that I had. I mean, and I wasn't eating a lot of or drinking a lot of any of that. It was like 1 cup in the morning and one, it wasn't like what people would consider an addictive behavior throughout the day, but
Right.
it was a biochemical and emotional addiction. And I really
Yeah.
I knew I had to let it go. So I let it go all at once. I was like cold turkey on the whole thing, everything that presented itself to me that was not going to serve the absolute highest and best good of this body. I knew I had to release. And I went through the emotional part of that I really didn't even know existed. The justifications, those light, fluffy justifications, were
Yeah.
overriding what was really there, which was really actually a full blown addiction. You know, I I sort of laugh about it now, but I literally cried for 2 weeks. I did nothing but cry. I was in total grief for 2 weeks at the loss of all of these things that I had attached my pleasure sensors to. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so that was really an interesting part of the process. And then so I just went, I didn't do anything. I just got up in the morning and just had lemon water all day long, and I was doing a lot of cleansing and a lot of releasing on many levels. But then after a period of time, several weeks, then I started to think, okay, I can have a hot drink in the morning and I can have, that same ritual and that same beauty, but I can do it in a way that's going to serve my body. So then
Yeah, like some yerba mate or something.
herba mate is too stimulating for my body, but
Okay.
I've been making up a tea called V tea for years, like I don't know, many 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 years. But I use it just sort of occasionally as a hot drink, and it's turmeric based with ginger and ashwagandha, shatavari, and a little bit of cardamom. So anyway, I thought I have everything. It's my own product, and
Yeah,
so
I saw you. Yeah, I was gonna say, is that your the golden milk or something like that?
I don't call it that because one of the things I did was make it super simple and super fast. Golden
Okay.
milk seems too daunting. You have to get your pot out and put it on the stove, and you know. So I just have everything in the mason jars on my counter, have it all made up, and then I just put it in my cup, add boiling water to like a 2/3 of a cup, um, add some coconut milk, and I have this little battery operated whiz, and it
Yeah,
makes it like a little latte thing.
I have
And
one of those too.
do you? Those are
Yeah.
fantastic. And then I
Uh-huh.
just put a little cardamom on top because the turmeric needs a spice. Black pepper is traditional, but I like a little bit of cardamom, and so I put just a touch of cardamom on top for the activation of the turmeric, and that has become now my morning drink. So I have 2 cups of that every morning.
I'm gonna have to order some of that because I do justify my coffee as well, because I already went through the process of turkey, everything that I was not free will choosing to have in my life, but almost it was choosing me,
Yeah,
or I was allowing it to have control of me. And one of them was gum, you know.
right, right.
This was a long time ago, but gum, coffee, any kind of soda, sex, uh, cannabis, or anything that had any type of
Yeah,
a lack of my free will and choice to say I'm going to partake in this. But I did add the coffee back, and it's gotten to that point again where now I think it controls me. Well, just because it's so delicious, so I'm like, oh, I want one all the time. It's like, that's not healthy, sweetheart, at all. So yeah, especially breastfeeding, you're like,
yes.
okay, you get one, and
Caffeine.
then we're gonna wean you down. But I've been wanting to do something like the golden milk, for just to be home and not have to leave, and it's
Yes,
getting colder in fall time, so that seems
it's a
appropriate.
perfect time to start that process. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, that warming, the warming. I say just buy just buy everything. Buy those things: the turmeric, the ginger, all organic, of course, the shatavari, the ashwagandha, and then just have the cardamom separate. Don't put the cardamom in it, especially it gets sort of lost in the mix, and it's extremely expensive. So
Okay.
I just keep the cardamom separate. And yeah, sometimes I have a little jar of ashwagandha and shatavari too, and I'll add a little extra sometimes. So yeah, just buy those and just make it up yourself and play with how strong you want it. If you put too much turmeric in, it'll be bitter, but then the coconut milk will help that. It
And
helps.
the cardamom will activate it, you said? I never
It
heard about that.
activates
So
it.
that's
The
really
spice of the cardamom really activates the turmeric. Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And just keep it simple. Like for the people who are going to watch this, just keep it simple. Like I said, just use your kettle. Just keep it really simple. So it's actually as simple or more simple than making coffee.
Right.
Mhm. People get daunted
Well,
by some process in the morning that takes too long or makes too big of a mess or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually you were talking about the gluten and the wheat. I have a boyfriend and he has a hard time coming into my house because my daughter loves to be a chef of all types of pastries, and he just has an allergy somehow to even smelling it.
Oh yeah.
And so it's
Uh-huh.
just interesting that how sensitive people can become to those
Yeah.
items.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll desensitize eventually. Like once you get like when I look back on my life, I've been sensitive to wheat. I don't say gluten per se because and it may be gluten, part of the gluten, but there's also other aspects to wheat that beyond the gluten thing. And so I've done I've tried everything to try and continue on with the that lovely thing called bread or whatever, and it just doesn't work at all for me, and probably didn't my entire life. Doesn't matter how organic or sourdough or sprouted or
Oh,
whatever.
really?
It's
Wow.
there's something in the wheat that just affects certain people more than others. Just put it that way. And then basically it has to be a nothing for me. Like I can't have any wheat.
Right.
To be that way. But eventually I found, and I used to be like really sensitive too, like to even, have it around me, but I'm not like that at all anymore. Like my
Oh, good.
daughter, we share a home. I have my own space. They have their own space, but we'll eat together sometimes. And they love, their, they love toast and, all of those things made from wheat. And it doesn't bother me at all anymore.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah, but I think a lot of the adaptogens have a lot to do with that. Like if we give our body those adaptogens when we find those sensitivities, those food sensitivities within ourselves or environmental sensitivities.
Yeah.
I use a lot of adaptogens for many years to get myself back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in a very polluted part of Canada. Like I think the area that I grew up in was the most polluted. Not only in Canada, but I think it reigns the most polluted in many areas.
Wow.
And I developed over my lifetime. I've just developed sensitivities to more and more and more things, and I had to unravel that. Had to go, unravel
Wow.
that. So there's hope.
Yeah.
Adaptogens,
Another part of, oh, go ahead. What?
mushrooms, good mushrooms. Reishi and
Lion's mane and
shiitake, and yes, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, I just bought a whole bunch of some off of, I don't know if you've heard of Thrive Market, but just being home with COVID, it's good to have it delivered to your door. So
Yes.
they have a lot of organic powdered stuff. So putting it in smoothies and encapsulating them. And
Yes. Uh-huh. I've been doing
I
that
wonder
as
if it would
well.
taste good. What did you say?
Cordyceps. I've been using cordyceps too. Yeah.
Nice.
What were you going to say?
Oh, the year before I got pregnant with this little one, I had just I had gone through something with my teeth that I felt was affecting my heart and all my organs just from the bacteria from the root canals that I'd had.
Right.
And I had some feelings, and I was going to the sauna every night for like an hour to 90 minutes. Maybe actually just about an hour, like 40. It's pretty hot sauna. And I think it was expanding this ceramic that was inside my teeth. And so I woke up one morning and it completely fell out, and then another one fell out on the bottom the next night, and I was like, what is going on? All my teeth are falling out.
Wow. The whole
And
tooth.
the whole inside of the tooth, if it was filled in with ceramic, it was completely out of my tooth, so it was hollow.
Wow.
On two teeth. So I made an appointment with a holistic dentist, and then it took a while for them to see me because they're all booked out. And before I got seen, it turned into dry socket, both of them. And I had the most severe infection throughout, and it had went through all my teeth to the point where I was like, the nerve pain that was shooting up through my sinuses and up into my head. And it was so interesting. I was using the two things that helped the most to affect the pain and infection. One was myrrh topically.
Yes.
And oregano oil internally, and then electronic acupuncture pen that you can get for like $10 online.
Wow.
It helped the most. It would be like where you almost like sustained acupressure, where you bring electricity and love to an area, and I would just let it sit there and activate and fire and go in and love that pain, and it would just dissolve. But then I pretty much spent 7 months in the dentist chair every single week, having up to 9 teeth pulled, plus my root canals finally out. But I knew I needed those out a long time ago, because if anybody studied about what the root canals do to your body, it was, so since then I've literally been on like major detox just to get rid of whatever infection had really gone through my whole body. And I think that's why I got really sick that December. Even though I felt super healthy, my teeth were, I had just gone through all these surgeries, and all the jaw pain from having just 9 teeth pulled. They have to suture everything because they were so infected, and root canals were not an option for me, and neither was having dental implants, because I wasn't willing to have a metal rod inside my mouth.
Right.
I'd rather, so it was very interesting to me to go through this process of, I am so grateful to just be alive. So if I smile, and I look like I do have missing teeth when I smile, and so the vanity left. It was like, I'm so grateful I'm at least alive. I'm grateful to still be alive, to go through this process where your whole, it was interesting.
So how did the symptoms, like you said, you felt like it affected your heart and other organs? Like, how did that unravel itself?
Yeah, it just felt like almost like congestive heart failure. But there was this documentary my friend sent me, it was called Bugs, and it talks about how most people who go get tooth work done at a dentist office, if they have any infection in these teeth, that infection, that amoeba that has grown inside that tooth, or the MRSA, because it's a anaerobic bacteria that grows in these root canals, that just goes in your bloodstream, and it goes straight to your heart, and it can cause an infection in your heart. And so it just was hard to take deep breaths, and I just felt, like this weird, I would just say congestive, something wasn't right with my heart. And I just knew intuitively I had to get these teeth out. Like, that was the next step in my healing journey, even though I wanted to keep my teeth, I wanted to keep my cute smile. I didn't want to have those, because the only other option was implants, and I didn't want to do that. I'm still waiting on that. Have you seen that new process where you can use stem cells to put up in the tooth area, and it would regrow a tooth?
Wow.
I saw that somewhere. I'm still open to that coming, but I really don't, it doesn't even matter anymore, just except for chewing food would, it's just a little bit challenging, but it's still good.
Oh, that's wonderful. So those symptoms decreased or completely released? How do you feel about?
It's weird, because now I'm breastfeeding, so I'm like, is it the same? Through the sternum area, I don't know if that's just pain from the heaviness of the breasts, but I do feel like there's some things, probably congestion in the lymph. I know I still have, it's affected that. And they say that when you have those root canals, usually you have breast cancer on the same side of the body that you have a root canal on. And also there's this Dr. Jerry Tennant's that has done amazing work with the polarity in the teeth and how they're, how they're each one of them to a circuit, to a meridian. So when you have these teeth that have amalgam or any type of metal, they're going to disrupt the meridian. And so he has it all worked out where it will first affect the heart, is what he says. It affects the heart, and then that whacks out every single other meridian in your body. So just to have a root canal or a tooth that's corroded, what he mapped it down to was, which is awesome. He has the Tennant's Institute in Texas, if anybody wants to look it up, but he's mapped it to these, he puts our body, he says our body's like a car. And so these are like the capacitors where they hold and store energy. Yes. And he says that he's mapped out the corrosion of that to emotions. And he's a neurosurgeon before he ever even got into this, but he realized that it's emotions stored in the tooth that are corroding it. Wow. It's pretty fascinating. So I was like, what? So a lot of emotions coming up with these teeth that were corroded, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's one of the ways that I've found the most emotion and the most amount of attachment. And I have to get a tooth pulled, this one. So what you say, thank you for sharing that, because I went to the dentist maybe 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had some work done, just some cavity work done with, of course, not with amalgam. I got my amalgams removed about 30 years ago. And
yeah.
But I did have some decay. So he cleaned that up. And then he's like, with a filling about 15 years ago, the dentist drilled into the nerve and killed that tooth.
Oh, yeah.
And so the dentist that I just went to said, so what do you want to do with that tooth? It's dead. It's been dead a long time. But I said, yeah, I know. And again, like working through, I would say some vanity, but mostly attachment. So there's like this, I can feel this deep attachment in there. And, I'm sure multi-level that I haven't even tapped into yet. But the last thing I said to the dentist was, I'll make an appointment to have that done after I release a little bit more of the attachment.
Oh man, I even, that's interesting with this attachment. I even saved my teeth that were extracted.
Absolutely. Yes.
And just to look at especially the root canals, to look at the toxicity that would breed without them even being in my mouth. Wow. And I let them sit there because they were, and I've also had my amalgams taken out like 15 years ago. And so I'd had that done, but the root canals inside the ceramic of the tooth was still metal. And so it was creating a metallic corrosion type effect in my mouth to all my other teeth around it. Uh-huh. So it was pretty interesting. But it's interesting that the ceramic, it wasn't amalgam, but it was, the white fillings. Yeah. Going to the sauna every day for 2-3 months would expand it and contract it enough that it just fell right out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a huge gift.
To have it just come out. Yeah. Right.
Well, and then to stimulate you into action. That's how I see some of these things.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is not having the finances to go to these holistic dentists and being able to accept assistance from other people that offer it, because I want to do it my own. If I don't have it, I don't want to rely on anybody. And I don't know where I got that from, but I just wanted to be, self-sufficient. Well, I had this really dear friend of mine say, Alice, I have a care credit card 0 interest rate, and I'll just let you use it. And, you know, $9,000 later, or, you know,
Wow.
through the summer last year, and I'm just slowly, you know, I get to slowly pay her off. But,
That's beautiful.
but just to receive that, I was crying, because then I was like, oh my gosh, like I was probably going to be so unhumble to receive that I would have died. Like I literally was so strong-willed that I can wait it out until, I guess, an emergency situation. But it was an emergency. Like I would even say, are you sure that teeth infections could make people die? Like it's in my head, and it's like really infected the whole mouth. Like I was doing clove oil, everything. But like I said, the major thing that really helped was topical myrrh, like right on the infections.
So myrrh powder or oil?
Essential oil is what I used. That's what I had on hand. And after, out of anything that I used, that was really what took the pain and the infection away enough. And then oregano internally, so I could sleep. And then that electronic acupuncture pen was like, oh, and I also was doing cupping on my face to help get some of the infection out, because it had drained the infection down my lymph node, like my whole neck was just, I almost felt like I had, where you turn rigor mortis, where you turn real hard because the infection is so bad. My neck was just so tight. Like I couldn't even move my neck. And that's when I was like, Al, and my heart was like, woo, honey, you know? So that whole thing was just such a, but yeah, the whatever, we're holding on to these teeth. And I went into the dentist and finally got in, because then it was an emergency. I'm like, I have been waiting for my appointment, which is a week from now, and I'm just in so much pain. I don't even know if I'm going to make it through the weekend. And they're like, okay, come in. And then he pretty much extracted him that day.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'd already been on my internal antibiotics, which was my oregano. Because I didn't go on the regular antibiotics, and that really helped. And then he could extract them that day. And he did the same with my root canal. So in one day I had like five teeth pulled. Wow. 5 teeth pulled. And then through the next months, I had 4 more teeth reconstructed. How would they do? And man, oh my goodness.
What a letting go.
I'm like, am I even going to have a face left? Like, is my jaw going to just shrivel? Because, you know, you get jaw, if you don't figure out the scar tissue in the jaw, your jaw can just start deteriorating away. So, and then being under.
Have you held points at all, like on yourself? Do you?
Oh, absolutely. I'll have to, because just being under anesthesia with all because of whatever, my processing of the anesthesia wears off really fast. So they have to constantly be putting more anesthesia in my face. And so all those toxins, just all of the numbness that happened, and even the having to be so trusting to have your mouth open that wide for that long of every week. It was like, I would say, so as traumatic, I mean, not as traumatic as childbirth or a C-section, but kind of, because you have to trust the dentist, trust that your heart's going to be okay, and that this is the right process.
Right. Well, trust is the word.
Right, exactly. Trust is the word. And trusting that, you know, we can go to the grocery store and not and we're not going to get infected, or if we do, trust that that's what's going to happen. Like, not be in fear about even walking out into public. Like,
well, it's really great that you got all that work done when you did, because I'm sure it was the same in Utah, but here our dentists were the first people to close down. Like, there was literally no dentist available to anyone in Canada, at least in British Columbia, I'm assuming for the rest of Canada, for several months.
I don't believe that was the case here, because there would even be commercials that would say, we're still open to the dentist.
Oh, well, here, every dentist was shut down.
Oh my goodness.
No dentistry, none.
How? Wow.
Yeah. So when they reopened again, I got right on, and you know, I had put off work as well, so I got right on it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get this done, and yeah.
You know, another thing I was just, as we're talking about this healing processes, I obviously, I never take work off. Like I'm always doing massage all the time,
Mm.
all the time. And I was thinking after this birth of a baby, usually I'm back to work within 4 or 5 days after giving birth.
Yes.
But with the cesarean, like I'm off work now and it's going on, this is the 6.5 week. And I have never I've never had to or had the opportunity to rely on someone else to pay my bills for me.
Yes.
In any respect in all my life, really, like since I was 18. So I have the father of this baby. He's the one who drove me to the hospital, and he was the one who was like holding my hand while I'm can't even see what's happening when I'm under anesthesia, and the baby comes out, and he's like back and forth with the baby, making sure we're all good. And he just reassured me, and he's just a boyfriend, like, you know, we're not living together, sharing finances or anything. And he's like, I just want you to know your bills are taken care of for the next 3 months if you choose to take that much off work. And I was like, but going through this process for the last 6.5 weeks has been trusting that he's going to have the money, trusting that I don't need to go to work so I can really fully heal and have this opportunity to spend with this darling angel where I don't have to just send her off to a babysitter. Or,
Yes.
I mean, how amazing is that? With my other two, they had to get babysat and I had to work full-time jobs, and I didn't ever get to really, I mean, I nursed him and I got to bond with him, but I'm so grateful. Like I literally just spend all day long doting on this little angel. I mean, I'm like, so I feel so blessed. Like I don't have to, I mean, obviously I have to, I don't have to, but I choose to clean the house and stuff and get as much done actively, but attempting to heal from a C-section, lovingly and willingly experiencing the limitations of, you know, even bending and lifting and all that. But just, I feel so grateful that this little one, I get to spend so much time with her. I just get to know her. What was that?
I said, that's wonderful, Alice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was hard just to trust. It was weird to maybe the re-experience of even having to, not having to trust, but you know, my mom was a single mom for a long time, but then she got a husband, but she still was responsible for all her own bills. And so I gathered that genetic imprint of the woman just takes care of her own, and she doesn't rely on a man. But
so do you feel that there's like I have that same pattern, or at least have shown that same pattern throughout my life? So, and I felt unfathered. Like when I was doing a lot of my inner work, that was like a really big chunk of my work, my inner work that I really, and I'm, you know, I'm still releasing it, you know, even now I still feel that there's still some dregs of that pattern that still exist within me. So, do you feel that there's a connection for you with the, like being, you know, potentially unfathered, with the, you know, that strength of will that has to come forth? Can you speak about that for?
yes, I absolutely feel that. And another aspect to it is also being resistant to be fathered. So not only not having, but this man is such a fathering individual that, you know, he wants to teach and help and hold my hand and guide. And I was like, you know, your ego kind of gets like, so I just had to unravel this interesting dynamic of you know, being on both sides of this resistance of not being fathered and maybe feeling some fear about being abandoned, but just having that, even if we're not together, he's never going to abandon me as a friend and this baby, right? So I got to work through that part, and then just work through his actual loving way he attempts to father, and my willingness to accept the little bits and go, you know, I'm okay for you to do that. I actually appreciate it now. Now I'm just like, you're kind of like my protector, and I actually really enjoy that.
Oh.
You know, like, not that I need a protector, and I know I'm already protected, but the masculine energy, I've really never had that in my life, of a really strong, masculine, sturdy,
reliable
energy. And I, you know, in my past, I've created that in my mind, like, wouldn't that be so great if I actually had a man in my life that would, you know, do A, B, C, D, and X, and I could, but also the thing is, not ever having a dad around for my children. So I had this weird healing that I had to be okay if he did leave, but allow him to stay if he did, but not try to push or recreate that men are never here for me paradigm, you know, in the brain, or men always leave, or men, you know, whatever I had a belief about men, it was like, you know, I'm just going to trust the process. And if this guy really, and he'll have to say to me, honey, you need, he doesn't call me honey, but Alice, your bills, like, I tried to go back to work at like 5 weeks, and my body was telling me in every single way, no, you're not. And I had a full schedule lined up, and I had to swallow my pride and call every one of those clients and cancel and say, my body's just not ready to do a massage. I'm going to need probably 4 more weeks, is, you know, whatever time I need. And they're like, just take the time you need. And myself is like, I got to get back to work because I got to start making money, and I got to, and he's like, I told you, you don't have to worry about that at all. And I'm like, but how do I trust that? What if, you know, but
that's beautiful to be able to allow that. Yeah. That's a real healing.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
And try not to push him away too. Not to try not to, but you know, we have all these mechanistic behaviors, and when they come up, and we just have to go, one, breathe, right? Breathe through it, acknowledge it, feel the emotion, and then release the emotion. If it's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually really grateful, but I really was scared too.
uh-huh. Yeah. Honoring that process.
Yeah. Such an interesting time that we're in right now. Just
Yes.
I love that you said just the trust is the word for the day, maybe.
Yeah.
Like trusting this whole, trusting what's happening in the process of the whole consciousness of the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, it's the huge healing crisis for the whole planet right now. Like, they're having all of their things stripped away, where they're having to, well, I mean, we're doing our work internally, so we're not hoping, it is getting out there to everyone. Mm-hmm. Energetically, whether they have the consciousness to process what's happening is a different story. Mm-hmm. Which is why it's great that you're having these go online. Like, eventually people are gonna mm-hmm. be able to listen to it and get some wisdom so that they can work through their stuff.
And I really still want to, I want to hold gatherings again. You know, this idea that we're not going to come together again, that is not going to be true in my work. So,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like we have to have, we're going to have gatherings again, and we just have to ride it out. We just have to wait for the healing crises to be worked through. And that's part of doing these videos, because I'm really calling on everybody on the planet who knows how to do their inner work, who knows how to transmute and, put that out into the morphogenetic field. I'm really calling on them to get it, amp it up, and really just make it part of their process, like not like a meditative process, like one or twice a day, but really make it like really put a lot of attention and energy into it all the time,
like a every ever present now type energy.
Yeah, absolutely. The life becomes the transmuting force. So the daily life, whatever we're presented with, becomes the transmuting force, and knowing that morphogenetically is going to ripple out into the consciousness of the entire planet, and then you know, and that will just, you know, that will hasten the healing crises.
Absolutely.
No, it has to. It has to really. We don't want this to linger for you know, for too long. Just I just think we should just all work as to the best of our ability and really, you know, really get it moved through.
Yeah, one thing I feel like the collective is working with, and probably humbling themselves to it too, is I never really wrote down, well, maybe I did write down a list, but it's mostly just on my back of my mind, you know, the list of what is it in my responsibility to create, or to you know, we have like all these ambitions. The human has these ambitions, like they want to go to college, do this, do that, do this, and this thing has kind of limited us, where we go internal and we go inside and we just be, and we maybe clean up all the stuff that is one of the it just reminds me of one of those quotes in my dad's books. I don't know it off by heart, but when what's in front of us we see is what is going to hold the key to our healing. Like what's right in front of you, and not to go take more classes, do more. Maybe you can if you feel it necessary, but like not just to do it, to have the degree, to have the diploma or whatever, but really just be right here, grounded, and clean up your life. Like clean out all the little corners of your house, clean up all the corners of your organs, really ground yourself and mineralize and really get a firm foundation, so that when this all passes, we can just blossom like.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll be living the life we've been waiting for.
Right.
And you know, but the work has to be done, because you know, we see so much going on in the planet that really has to be cleaned up. You know, consciousness has to have a really good cleanup, and that's what this time is really all about. And you know, just my thing is like, let's just move it as quickly as possible, you know.
As efficiently as humanly possible.
Yes.
I'm
So
all about efficiency.
I heard someone speak to me and say, and I don't know where they got this number from, but it was like, okay, I'll accept that. 20 people on the planet that are really doing the transmutation work is enough to have a really rapid effect on all of human consciousness. So, you know, that sounds good to me.
Well, have you heard of like the 80-20 rule? Like,
No.
well, I don't think it's called the rule, but it's like it's in this book called The Tipping Point as well. Have you read that book?
No.
So it's about communities and movements. And once a populace reaches a 20% of anything, the entire populace will take on that energy. So they take this into consideration with like microwaves or cell phones. Once 20% of the populace gets cell phones, everyone will have one. Once 20% people have TVs, everyone will have one. Once everybody has whatever it is, it's called the tipping point. So when 20% of the consciousness of the individuals on the planet know themselves, everyone's going to be able to know themselves, because they're going to have that mirror and it's going to reverberate, and they're going to just know who they are. And I can see that even with my own children. I mean, I'm obviously teenagers. You want them to grow and develop and just be there for them. And they get to a point where they don't want to hear what you have to say. But the more you just don't push, don't create resistance, you just be and hold the space. I've seen that they eventually come around and start trusting to talk to you and vent to you and take your advice, your wisdom, when you open your mouth, and not just go, you're stupid, you're crazy, you believe in essential oils and herbs and energy and love and gratitude. And it's like, what the hell is all that, Mom? We just got to get, it's like, that's just how it is. I know it's from my experience, and you'll learn your little journey is exactly what it is, perfect. And you'll come, all paths lead to source, is what I say, or whatever you want to call that. To God, to yourself, to love. Love already, like nothing can, it's just a journey or a experiential, maybe a record track of mechanistic record that is, it's writing, it's playing itself, and then we're imprinted on the record, and we get to light up and correct the codes in it that are anything less than love.
Yeah. Uncreate.
Uncreate, yes. Uncreate, and then yes.
I think if we uncreate, we don't have to do anything else. Because every time I did any form of true transmutation and uncreated a program or pattern within my psyche, my consciousness, then what rose from that was automatic, and I didn't have to do anything.
It was the perfect blueprint that already was.
Yes, just allowing it. It just got every time I took a layer out, then I become more aware, and I become more aware of, the essence of life.
Yes.
It's always in existence. So it's really just about, to me, it's just about uncreating.
I love that, because then there's no striving to, I got to take that new class. No, the wisdom is written inside the code. You just got to get rid of, uncreate all of the resistances that have created filters.
Ridden or just, clouded what's actually there.
Right, which is just the basis, which is love, right? That's everything. It's actually, everything is love, and then there's the contrast, just the experiences that gain the wisdom. Because if we didn't have that, why even have a life experience?
Right.
If we didn't have the polarity of the darkness to see ourselves as light, we would just be light and love and be translated and up in doing whatever, beaming everywhere. But we're like these little it's really beautiful. Life is so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
It is. Yeah. The process.
Yeah. And just being grateful to be breathing, like waking up after having like your experience with the illness that came upon, or whatever you want to call it, a healing crisis. Like waking up, breathing, we're like, oh good, wow, I'm still alive. Of course you are. Of course you are. And you know what, I want to share this story and see if it resonates. I mean, I feel like we all, whatever we've written into our existence in this code that we've created, I really feel at this time people have such an ability to choose in or out at this point. And yes, there's been a lot of suicides and exiting the outs, but I have a client, and she's been going into dialysis twice a week. And when she started to have the mask be put on her to go do it, she started to have anxiety attacks. So her doctor prescribed her some Xanax, and she died. And then she gets rushed to the hospital. They won't let anybody in but her. They won't let her daughter or the husband in. She's in there for however many minutes. They come out and she's pronounced dead. They come and say, okay, now the daughter or the husband could come. And this was in end of June. So right in the middle of this issue that's happening. And the husband goes into the room and talks to her, and she wakes up out of her death. And her daughter's like, Mom, what did you see on the other side? People say, what near-death experiences? Who did you talk to? What happened? And she's like, well, I was told that I could come back, and it felt really good because it was the first time I'd been out of pain in a really long time in my life. Or I could go back and and continue to see my grandkids get raised. And she's like, I guess I chose my grandkids. So like, I feel like the physical plane, like we really at this point in time have if we choose to be here, like we get the choice. We are sovereign, so we can choose in or out at any time. And maybe that we did already pre-consciously choose a time when we were going to exit out of this plane of consciousness. But I think if we're going to be here and going through what you went through and what I went through, at any point we could have said, oh, I give up. And Spirit would have said, right. As you wish.
Right.
As you wish, if you feel that necessary. But if you really want to be here, you have all the tools you have everything you need spiritually. You have everything you need to take care of it if you choose to stay.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? Thank you for saying that. That came up with me quite often in these past few months. I was very aware that that I was choosing to be here, and that giving up was then my choosing not to be here,
Right.
and that if I just went over that tipping point, that that I could leave at probably at many given points, just by just totally giving up. Yeah. So it was an interesting part of the process where you have to simultaneously keep going, and with as much non-resistance as possible. There's a lot of layers to all of that giving up. It's not as simple as just making a quicker flippant choice. It's really like energetically just really um, yeah.
Yeah, like if you're just like, I'm maybe I don't want to handle the pain, can't handle the pain, or whatever was happening.
Yes.
But if you're like, I'm totally okay with the pain, I know I can get through this pain.
Yeah.
I know I can get through it.
I wasn't totally okay with a lot of the pain, but I was still willing to be with it.
Absolutely. For that pain in my jaw and my teeth, it was, if I could say on a scale of 1 to 10, it was an 11. Like I literally was like, is this even physically possible for me to still be dealing with this type of a pain? Like just the nerve pain throughout.
Yes.
But I was using every tool possible, but I was like, I know there's a way for me to get through this. And I would even use, I don't know if you've seen these Resimax devices. They're like these little, some doctor here in Utah made these, and it's like a $550 tool with some gua sha sides, but it resonates 16 frequencies of a cat's purr. And so it brings love right to an area, and it helps stimulate the vagus nerve. But I was using this on my jaw the whole time, like just, while I go to sleep, just to send love to my heart, to calm myself down, like having a cat on you, just to calm yourself down.
Wow.
It was really powerful for me to have that. But also the electronic acupuncture is such a simple tool, and it would just send such a direct frequency of electromagnetism, or electronic, whatever. It's just like body electronics, but like super powered. I would literally hold it on my points, and then the pain would go away. I just had to love it through it, and then and feel it, and then it would transmute. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing. I would just put it everywhere. I'm like, this is my lifesaver right now. Thank you for whoever developed this. Oh my gosh.
Jim Graham, my friend Jim Graham, who's gone on now. He passed away, but he was the man, a great friend of your father's as well, who developed the point holding. It was like a box, and he developed it in New Zealand because he lived alone, and so it literally held points all down your body.
Oh wow!
Did you hear about him before?
I've heard of John, but not that tool that he created.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Jim Graham is his name.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also when I would also use my cupping sets, I would literally put them on my jaw and down my sternocleidomastoid muscle to try to draw the infection. But at the same time, it's like some of them had magnets too. So because some of them come with those magnets that point, like acupuncture points, and that really assisted to bring in energy, not only to detox but to point hold, where I didn't have to sit there and hold it with my fingers. I could just be still and breathe through it while the pain was being activated. Wow. Through the suction. Because you suction it to, well, they say to suction to about a 3 in pain, but it was already in an 11 in pain, so any type of tightening was going to accentuate that pain. And it just would be on fire, and I just breathe through it. I'm so glad we have all these tools. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have those tools.
Yeah. I would have, like, using whatever you can externally while doing the inner work.
Absolutely.
Because we I'm, even though we say the external level, even with supplements and diet and, exercise, whatever we do externally, physically, um, that's like 10% of the foundation part of the consciousness change, or whatever, however we want to call it. That
Right.
I've shifted my work from body electronics now. So I'm not teaching body electronics any longer. I made that decision sometime last year in 2019. So that was actually I did 20 years in body electronics. And,
Wow.
but I've said this before on another video, but I had been really encouraged internally to shift it into what I consider my work now, my body of work. And so that's where the Gnostic way came in. But it actually, like, the foundational knowledge of body electronics, of course, is present. So the point holding is present, and the physical foundation is present, and all of the transmutation, the natural laws, of course, are. I mean, those are timeless. So.
Right. And body electronics, it's just one way of labeling the process that's happening in your body.
Yeah.
So it's just like the we all have this understanding, this, like you said, once we undo or uncreate these resistances that are present, that the wisdom will just flow through. The lights, like the information, all of the answers are within us.
Yeah.
And I like to call all these external processes just placebo effects, because
Yeah.
we don't really need them. We don't really need them. We can just, they're just really nice. They're like little pleasures we get to have, right?
Yeah. And they can push us into a certain direction as well. They can encourage, like what I just heard you say about what you were using, that was encouraging the healing crises.
Absolutely.
That's all encouraging it. So as long as we're not discouraging it by trying to numb it out or suppress it in some way, then that's where we go in the other direction with external things, externalized things. But as long as we're encouraging the healing crises, that's I say, whatever external methods we can use to do that, that's great.
I'll add to that. When I was in the hospital, they want to give you Percocet or Lortab or other things after you've had the C-section to help with the pain. And I opted out I didn't want to do any of those. So I was using frankincense, rosemary, lavender, helichrysum on my abdomen for the bruising, which really helped. The rosemary was fantastic, if I could say one thing that really helped the pain. But I was taking, for the 5 days I was in the hospital and 3 days after, an alternating ibuprofen and Tylenol. But we all know how toxic these are to our bodies. And so, because I normally don't take any NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, I usually don't ever take them. But when I got home, I was doing too much. Even in the hospital, I was doing too much because I wasn't able to feel my trauma. So I was actually re-traumatizing myself by suppressing it with these drugs, even though they helped me get out of bed and move and stuff. But when I got home, my midwife said, Alice, I know that you're doing too much because I know you. And I want you to get off all the Tylenol and ibuprofen so that you can feel your pain, so that you can really know where you're at. Like,
When to stop.
So you allow your body to, yeah, when to, like, yeah, because if you're not in pain, you're just going to re-traumatize yourself and just keep this healing process going for months and months. And like you said, we just want to be as efficient as possible. We don't want to have this going on for 2-3 years. My sister last year said she had a C-section as well, and she ripped hers open doing laundry and walking upstairs. And I was like, man, I do not want to re-tear this up, because then I'll have more trauma to heal even.
Right.
My goodness.
Yeah, the human body, isn't it amazing, huh?
Yeah. And even yeah. And it's really, I'm really interested in doing some points when the scar's ready, like to do the scar tissue healing. Like,
well, I know we've talked about it many times, but I'm very ready and willing to sometime next year. I see myself coming, doing a little bit of some road trips. So I'm happy to come your way.
oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love to see you on your way to. I'm sure you'll hit Sedona.
Yeah, and
But,
I'm a big fan of stones, so I often go to Tucson for the gem show.
oh,
So
nice.
which is the first 2 weeks of February. So I'm already dreaming about that.
I'm a fan of stones too. I don't know if you could see, but
Oh,
I collect thousands of stones as well. But I've came to the point where I don't need any more. I mean, I love them, but so
in my
they've been
moving
called.
process, I let a lot go. Like
Yeah.
I brought only one large stone, and
Wow.
yeah,
That's
like
good.
I mean a cathedral, like a really large. And then I have, I have a lot of my personal stones, but probably 90% of my stones went to other people.
Isn't that such a fun where we realize we can have them, but they're not attached to us. I love that feeling that.
And some are, I have to admit.
Well, we love them, but
Yeah,
they're in our space for now. And if they're called to go somewhere else, you're not attached where you can't let them go.
right.
I remember having that happen with my plants when I got divorced. I I loved all my plants. So I had like an oasis in my house of plants. I kind of do in here too now in this living room, but um, I took half of my plants and half of the plants because I wasn't supposed to take any of them, apparently, because every single one of them had died before I got any other plants and got a place where I could recreate my plant life in my house. But it was kind of like children because my ex-husband was like, no, I get that plant and that plant. I'm like, well, I was the one who took care of them all these years and you're just going to take all the plants. And I mean, this was over a decade ago, but my goodness.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
Well, they're living
interesting.
beings, right? So, I mean, that's a great example because the plants are living beings and the stones are living beings.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's not like a chair or, I don't.
Right, like an inanimate object. They actually have a,
They have feelings and they have spirit.
yeah. But that was a letting go. But then I was like, fine, my last one, I was like, okay, I'll give away this plant and I'll rebuild when Eddie in the right space. I don't need all these attachments. We can even be attached to like our books and stuff, but over the years, I've just allowed them to go to the people that deserve to have them. And I don't need to hold on so tight to objects. And even though I do have plenty of plants and stones at this point, but I'm totally willing to let them go at any time if they're ready. But it's really, I feel really blessed. I feel like I live in, I'm in Utah County, which is like a very predominantly Mormon, environment. And, there are a few crystal shops spread out throughout the Wasatch Front, but not very many people. It looks they're more like, oh, that's voodoo, or type of energy to even have stones or have necklaces on that means things. And I just feel like I've created my own little oasis wherever I am. So it's really, I feel like I live on the coast, just how I have my house, but I don't have to, but I'm not 2,000 miles away from here. I'm growing where I'm planted is I think my entire life I've felt like, oh my gosh, I'm in Utah. I want to move away. I want to go somewhere more with more greenery, right? Like Florida or somewhere more luscious. But I can create that in my own little space. So that's what I've done and I don't feel that need to run anymore. It's really, finally got to that place where I can just ground here and be where I've been planted until I'm called for sure somewhere else. But I don't have that resistance, like fighting out of this little bubble.
Yeah, I feel that too here in Nelson. I feel really grounded here, really, really at home. I feel really at home here, and I've only been here a couple of months.
Nice, that's good.
Yeah.
I love that trusting is the groundedness, right? It's our trusting that we're taking care of wherever we are. We're walking in holy places. Wherever we are, we can be grounded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So
Thank you.
shall we end there?
Yeah,
I would love to do this again,
I
Alice.
would too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Illia.
We'll get into more of the principles next time. It was really great to share like our healing journeys. I think it's important for people to hear experience. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that, for your openness to really share that. So next time we'll get a little more serious in the principles of because it's really about the how to. I see a lot of people and I hear a lot of people talking about even that word transmutation. But what is that? How do we really do that? So,
Yeah.
and I'd really like to share that with you. I know that you're adept, and I would really really like to have a sharing back and forth with us to share with others. So I think I'll leave it for now, just to say, just for the people watching, to start really doing the inner work. The nutritional aspect is important. All physical aspects are important. Um, do that to whatever your body requires. A lot of that is on my website as far as nutritional supplementation. So from there, number 2 is stillness. Practice stillness, perfectly still. It allows the electrical activity to move perfectly in the body. And the third thing is to do the 3-part breath without ceasing. There is at the bottom of the exhale, and when in the circle of the breath, of course, there is this moment where we go into the other, but it means that we're being conscious of the inhalation and exhalation, so that we're not allowing a cessation of the breath. So those 3 things will set us up to move into the emotional body. So I'll leave that for now, just as the 1, 2, 3s of preparing for really the inner work. So thank you so much, Alice, and it's
Thank you, Illia.
really been great to reconnect with you after these years.
It has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.